Well, hello again. This is Lindsay once again from Upfront Counseling Solutions. So, as I promised, we are covering the fourth Horseman, which is called Stonewalling. Now, if you haven't had the chance to watch the other Horseman, which is the Four Horsemen by Gottman Therapy, please, look me up on YouTube and watch the other three, which is criticism, defensiveness, and contempt. And subscribe. Let me know what you think. All right. So we're going to cover the fourth horseman, which is stonewalling. A lot of times people think that when they hear that word stonewalling, they feel that, oh, my partner doesn't want to talk to me. They're being stubborn. It's been whatever, a day, and we haven't talked. We've slept in separate bedrooms. Or sometimes it goes on for days, weeks, months. So when it starts to go on for months, that's a really bad relational rupture. And sometimes it's not, and this is the bad thing. Like sometimes we feel it's just being stubborn. They don't want to talk. And many, many times as a counselor, I have come to realize that they just don't know a pathway forward. That they reach this level of intensity. They have lost hope in their ability to walk through conflict or resolve the real issues. And so they resort to just not engaging each other, which is not really acceptable if you're in a relationship and you need to talk about the day-to-day things and you don't really have a partner for you, and kind of gets lonely, and then there's that tension in the air, that constant gnawing tension, right? Okay, so what is all that about? A lot of times, people shut down, they go into that fight, flight, or freeze, and they just don't quite know how to re-engage and to talk about the real issues again. They don't know how to sort through it or how to begin, so they just don't. And so it's not always that sense of he or she does not want to talk to me. Sometimes it's more along the lines of they just don't know how to find their way, find a pathway forward and begin communicating again. Emotions are powerful. I've been in counseling sessions where, I say, wow, the wife is quite articulate. She understands and has a good handle on things and really explains things very well. Then I get them into session with each other, with the husband, and all of a sudden, crickets. Everything goes silent on the wife's part, and the husband's doing all the explaining, and she totally shuts down because of anxiety. And she just does not have a voice in that moment. She just totally shuts down. And I go, wow, the first time seeing the drastic difference, it's like, wow, as a counselor, I don't believe this. I've seen very, very big men, shut down when they want to tell their wife something, in this one example, with this one, pretty big guy playing, with the daughter and this and that, and they go to put things away and the wife always makes it, comes back after and picks up and makes it just right, even if they did their best. And he wanted to say something about that, but he was raised in a family of feeling as though I can never have a voice. So to enter into any conflict would be just incredibly challenging. So sometimes in those cases I do, Gottman or Gestalt therapy, and I do role playing and this and that. And sometimes I have to do it about 8 times before they even formulate full sentences in explaining, and I'm playing the wife, maybe that was it. I was an ugly looking wife. I don't know. But, they would, by about the 6th or 7th time, be able to be more expressive. And then finally, when they were able to say something to their wife, the wife, who reasonable person and pretty nice person, but it was more how the person was raised. It wasn't even having anything to do with the actual conflict. And the wife would often, in many sessions, the wife would say, wow, I never knew. I didn't think this was an issue. I thought you would have said it if it bothered you. I didn't realize this. And so the wife would say, please, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. If you find it challenging, I'm here. So it was a game changer. So it's not always stubbornness. I don't want to talk. I don't want to resolve the conflict. It's the same old thing. Put it under the carpet. It's not always that. It's sometimes they're afraid to say the wrong thing because out of anger, maybe in the past they said the wrong thing and it wasn't what they meant. And it was taken totally the wrong way. And then the partner holds on to it and says, you said this and you said that, and when you're angry, you really meant it. It was so hurtful when you said it. And the partner was like, wow, I don't even remember what I said. I was so angry. I was just speaking from a place of pain and hurt. And then now my partner is holding on to that. And I didn't mean it. I just didn't mean it. And so that creates a bigger fear in them to even think about engaging in the conflict because, what if I say the wrong thing that doesn't represent me? Then what will my partner think? Okay, so there's a lot of reasons why there's this big the word stonewalling, where it's basically a wall. There's a wall. You shall not pass. There's a wall there, right? That we can't seem to get past this wall of communication. And then, you have the, external processors that are bing, bang, boom, and connect the dots. And then you have the internal processors like baking a cake, right? You just don't take the cake out of the oven, halfway through the baking process. It's like, I got to think it through. I have to analyze it. I have to be ready to engage and kind of sort things out in my head first, where the external processor is more bing, bang, boom. Hey, let's talk. I want to resolve this. And the other one's like, shh, get back, right? So those are reasons. Now, with the fourth horseman, talked a lot of reasons why it's kind of difficult and challenging. But what about the antidote for the fourth horseman? So you kind of have to manage that fight, flight, and freeze. In Gottman therapy, after 40 years of research, they would even put a monitor on people's finger to see, what their heart rate was like. Because when it went up to about 100 beats per minute, the conversations would typically go sideways. In fact, they did it, in their experiment, they would say, okay, as soon as it got up to about 100 beats per minute, the monitors, their heart rate, they'd say, hey, you guys have been doing so good. It's time for break. And then the times that they didn't do that, where the heart rate would go up to about 100 beats per minute, and they didn't take a break, then usually the conflict, instead of resolving it, would go somewhat sideways. Not good at all. So they said, okay, we have to manage this. We don't want it to escalate, between a scale of 1 and 10. We don't want it to get to 8, 9, and 10, because in the conversation's too intense. It goes into that fight, flight, or freeze, and it's like a runaway train. That's it. You're not going to resolve or do very good work at that time. So emotions are powerful. If you can manage that, even if the conflict stays between maybe a 4, 5, 6, 7, but as soon as it starts creeping up there, it's a lot harder to control. So part of the antidote is, pick a time where you're going to actually have a conversation at a good time. Don't be too hungry. Don't have a crazy bad day at work and think you're going to resolve something. Have your dinner, relax a bit and say, okay, you know what? I would like to talk. I had the time to think about it, and now I'm ready to talk. So the other antidote is this, the time to think about it, that you disengage. So if you go into that fight, flight, or freeze, it's time for a break then. If your heart escalates and you're really worked up, it's okay. If your partner's running out the room, don't chase him. It's okay to take a break and say to your partner, you know what? Yeah, I'm really getting ticked off. I'm really not in a good space. I'm getting worked up, and we'll come back to this. The partner is more thinking, will we come back? Will we come back? Are we going to resolve it? And yes, I will come back, and You have to build the confidence in your partner that, yes, tomorrow we will talk about this. Give me time to think about it and we will address it again. When you take your break, this is kind of the self-soothing that you think about it. Okay, first, maybe just take your break, let the dust settle. Another word for saying let those emotions calm down a bit, and not be so intense. And then begin to think things through. The things with intense emotions, when you're flooded, your ability to process and assess goes down, 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 down. So that's when you say the wrong things and you often do the wrong things. So, that's so important that, when you're taking your break, those emotions are down more and you're processing, assessing, what could I have said differently? What could I have done differently? Maybe I need a bit more perspective here. What was my part in this? Kind of going back to the other three horsemen. Did I do some of the other three horsemen? Maybe that played into why this kind of went sideways. And so you have to look at that. So the fourth horseman, stonewalling. Some of the big antidotes. Take a break, explain to your partner, I'll come back, we'll talk about it after dinner or tomorrow. Don't let it go for weeks, no, because then it just gets a mess. And make sure that you actually get into a good dialogue using Gottman style, in the sense of listening, validating, understanding, and coming up with some real solutions and focusing on the solutions and not just all the smoke and emotions from the challenges, but really focusing on solutions and the real concerns that both have, right? So that is the fourth horseman, stonewalling. It can be very challenging, but it is very manageable. So this is Lindsay Heyer coming to you from Upfront Counseling Solutions. Please watch me on YouTube, the whole series now. I did the 4 horsemen. You can watch all 4 now. So look me up and give me a thumbs up and subscribe and have just a fantastic day. It's Friday, so enjoy your weekend. Take care.